Chapter 13, Coward. We noticed the daylight creeping in under the door. It was time to try to make it back to the hood. The plan was to act like we were boyfriend and girlfriend walking hand in hand, as innocent as could be. Hopefully we wouldn't run into any white people. The plan worked. Back in the hood we were split up. I went to Maria's and kept knocking on the door until somebody answered. Maria opened the door screaming, mad at me for waking her up. "What the hell do you want so fucking early?" I stared at her with watery eyes, not knowing what to say. She noticed that something was wrong and asked me about it. I promised to tell her, but first I had to get off the street. Once inside, I told her what had happened the night before. She cradled me in her arms and told me I could stay there as long as I wanted. I was relieved in more ways than one. I had somewhere to hide, and I wanted to have sex with Maria to get the shooting out of my mind. Going to Hector's didn't even cross my mind. I kept myself locked in Maria's bedroom all day. Nobody knew I was there except for Maria's daughter, Lucy. Lucy knew that I was hiding out because of the shooting, but did not know the complete details. She thought I had participated fully and was therefore impressed. She acted seductively towards me. I could have told her the truth, but I didn't. It wasn't to my advantage. That evening, Maria came into the room and asked me how I felt. I assured her that I was okay and tried to kiss her, but she pushed me back. She told me that her boyfriend was on his way upstairs and that I would have to come out of her room. I was very disappointed, but I accepted it. For the next few days, all I did was pace from the living room to the kitchen and back again, thinking about the attack on the Shy West. I couldn't sleep. Over and over again, I imagined the bullets piercing that girl's face and chest and the blood splattering. Smoking marijuana put me at ease, but when I came down from that high, I became paranoid. Myra and Lucy were constantly making sexual advances towards me. I couldn't believe how sexy crazy these girls were. Their whole world revolved around getting high and having sex. Some days, they would have multiple partners and would then sit around comparing them with each other. My first 4 days there, I slept with Myra and Lucy. I never slept alone. After the 4th day, that started to change. Myra never complained about me touching her, regardless of where she was at or what she was doing. All of a sudden, she began to snap at me whenever I got near her. She said she liked brave guys, not cowards. Lucy made remarks about me thinking I was big and bad and that I was really a big pussy whose life was saved by a girl. On the 5th day, I left their apartment feeling angry and embarrassed, but mostly I was afraid. I had to try to make it to Hector's before I ran into the Lords. Papo, Pothead, and Crazy One were hanging out by Thule as I passed. I thought they were going to try to jump me, so I began looking for ways to run, but they just looked up and down and didn't say a word. I stopped in front of them and said, "Hey, what's up?" Pothead said to get the fuck away from them. They didn't want any cowards hanging around with them. I got angry and started cursing at them. Papo grabbed me in a full Nelson and said, "Pull up before you get jumped, punk." He told me that I was on my own. The Lords didn't want me around anymore. I walked up Claremont Street, feeling lonely as hell. I kept hearing people calling me names like pendejo, punk, or idiot, coward, pussy, maricon, faggot, just to name a few. I don't know why, but I just didn't want to go to Hector's place. I walked up Western Avenue toward Her Street and ran into Morena. I thought she was going to add a couple more names to the ones I had already been called, but instead, she walked up to me and surprised me with a kiss on the cheek. Morena asked me where I'd been. I told her I was at Maria's hiding out. She laughed and invited me to smoke some weed. We walked back down Hirsch and headed toward the Unknown's hood a couple of blocks away. As we walked, we lit up some joints and talked about the past. I told her about how I was being treated in the hood. She told me that she didn't have anything against me for reacting the way I did. She said she understood. Moreno went on to tell me that Mouse had been caught by the police with the gun he had used that night. Snake was with him and he was locked up too. She also told me that Papo was the one that suggested I be thrown out of the hood. I was kind of shocked that my best friend Papo would act that way toward me. I guess he was angry and disappointed because I didn't meet his expectations as a gang member. In the Unknown's hood, I saw Speedy with Jenny's brother, Little Man. I expected to get the same shabby treatment from them that I had gotten from the Lords, but that wasn't the case. It seemed like the only ones who were talking shit were the Lords. Little Man asked me where I'd been. He said his sister was worried about me. Little Man, Morena, and I got in a car with a Latin king from Beach and Spalding streets called Tito. The Beach and Spalding area was home to what was supposedly the biggest faction of Latin kings in the city. I had heard about that area before, but had never been there. I had thought it was in the suburbs somewhere. Little man instructed Tito to drop me off by his house so that his sister could see me. I didn't want to go there. I wanted to hang out with the kings, but I said nothing. Reluctantly, I stayed at Jenny's place, knowing that at least I could get sex if nothing else. Jenny had already heard about what had happened with the lords. She was being careful about what she said concerning the subject. It was obvious she didn't want to hurt my feelings, but she seemed bothered by something. Jenny was alone. Her parents had taken Lisa to be fitted for a dress she was to wear at a wedding she was going to stand up in. We talked for a little while about where I had been for the last 5 days, and then we started kissing. She invited me to her room. I laid her on the bed and I got on top of her. She pushed me off. "Why didn't you shoot that white boy?" Jenny asked. I stood there quietly, staring at her and at a loss for words. "You can't be my boyfriend and be a punk," Jenny said. "My boyfriend has to be brave." I stuttered, searching for words to protect my manhood. "It's okay. I know next time you won't back down, right?" Jenny told me as she began kissing my neck and face. All was forgotten and we began making love. Then suddenly we heard someone calling her name. We stopped to listen. When her name was called out again, we realized that it was her father calling from outside. We got up and began getting dressed. Before I could get my pants on, her father was knocking on her bedroom door. Jenny pretended she was awakened by her father's knocking and told him to wait a minute. I picked up all my belongings and crawled under the bed. I heard Jenny's father questioning her about why she was asleep at that time of the day. Then he told her to start cooking so that her mother could relax for the day. The light in the room was turned off, the door was shut, and then there was silence. Even with my mother and Pedro gone, I still ended up under a bed. Jenny's words, "You can't be my boyfriend and be a punk," were prophetic. Being violent was required not only by the gangs, but also by girls. Why a girl would desire a guy who could kill in cold blood is beyond my understanding. Seconds, minutes, and then hours went by, and I was still under the bed. Jenny came in the room several times, but she was with her mother and never stayed for very long. Every time the door opened, my heart skipped a beat. Then I heard the door opening again. This time, I only saw one pair of feet walk in. It was Lisa. Lisa bent down, handed me some food, and told me to stay quiet and be patient. Her parents would be going to bed soon. I got out from under the bed and looked out the window to see if the coast was clear to jump out. Little man and some of his friends were standing in front of the house, so jumping was out of the question. I sat there and ate the food that Lisa had brought me. I had just finished eating when I heard footsteps near the door. Quickly, I crawled back under the bed. Jenny, Lisa, and their mother walked in and sat on the bed. They began talking about the upcoming wedding that Lisa was going to be in. I was being squashed between the floor and the bed while trying desperately not to be discovered. Lisa decided to get her dress and try it on. Jenny suggested that they do it in her mother's room, but Lisa refused, saying that it wasn't going to take long. Lisa stepped out and came back with her dress. I saw her pants drop and I wanted to get a better look, but stayed still, fearing that if I made any significant moves, Jenny's mom would notice. Real fucking pervert, boy. Finally, after about 45 minutes of physical and mental cruelty, Jenny and Lisa led their mother out of the room. They returned shortly and began jumping on the bed, laughing quietly. Lisa called me out and told me that her parents had gone to bed, and as soon as Little Man and his friends left, I could jump out the window and go home. Jenny went to take a shower. Lisa and I stood looking out the window, waiting for the guys to leave. They were drinking, smoking weed, and flashing gang signs at cars that drove by. Several times, they went as far as chasing the car, throwing bottles at it. Jenny came back into the room. Lisa said goodnight and left. Jenny locked the door behind her, walked over to me and kissed me. She let her robe drop to reveal her naked body. We started kissing passionately, and soon we were making love to each other again. The next thing I knew, it was daylight. I could hear Jenny's parents up and about. I panicked. I looked out the window and saw that the coast was clear. I got dressed, gave Jenny a kiss on the forehead, and prepared to leave. "Come back tonight," I heard Jenny say as I climbed out the window. I stayed at the bus stop thinking about Jenny and her sexual hunger. I laughed to myself thinking about what would have happened if her parents caught us. The The bus came and I snuck in through the back door. I looked out the bus window, watching the buildings go by, lost in the thoughts of the previous night. I knew I was headed toward the Lord's hood, but I didn't know where I was going once I got there. I hated going to Hector's. Everybody there looked like zombies, and he was their master, but it didn't matter. I had to go to Hector's house. I was scared of what the Lords would do to me if I stayed out on the street.